One thing we've heard a lot as we move into this new era of college football with conference realignment and the transfer portal and the NIL thing going on, we're going to get a lot more parity. That's the selling point a lot of people have been trying to tell us. Now, is that true? Is that something that's actually going to be a reality as we move into the next era of what this sport has to offer? I don't think it is. Because I think when they talk about having more parity, that provides the assumption that there wasn't already some parity to begin with. And from where I'm sitting, we just had Washington and TCU play for national championships the last 2 years. Now, TCU got absolutely drugged through the mud. Washington made it a game for a little bit in that second half. But at the end of the day, both those teams playing for a national championship, if that's not parity, I don't know what is. And oh, by the way, rewind the clock a little bit further, you had a G5 team in Cincinnati make the 4-team playoff. To go on top of that, we've never had the same 4 teams make the college football playoff. But the powers that be, big CFB, if you will, there's big pharma, there's also big CFB. They'll try and kind of put a curtain in front of your face and say, well, don't look at that. There's never, we need more parity when it comes to who's going to win the national championship. That's what we need. And I'm telling you now, get this new conference realignment thing going. We get an expanded playoff going. That's going to get you more national champions, going to give you a little bit more diversity when it comes to who's hoisting that hardware. Y'all, I keep telling you, this is a lie. They think we're dumb. We're not. That's not true. They're all about their dollars, and we understand that. Everybody's got to make a buck. But when you look at how this thing is going to shape up with who can win a national championship going forward now, it doesn't cater to a greater amount of teams winning a national championship. Now, maybe you allow more teams into that dance, but let me ask you this. Is Washington playing for a national championship if you threw them in a 12-team field? Now, full transparency, I love Michael Penix Jr. I love Rome Odunze. My Atlanta Falcons just drafted Michael Penix Jr., and I was one of the few Atlanta Falcons fans that had no qualms with it. But the reality of it is, Washington, I do not believe, or TCU, I do not believe, is going on a 4-game run where they go and beat teams from the SEC, the Big Ten, and get all the way to a national championship. Now, it could have happened, and maybe Washington gives you a better chance to get that done than a TCU does, but you hear what I'm saying. Previously, if you're a Washington, you're a TCU, you're not one of those big brands in the SEC or the Big Ten from last season, you just had to run the gauntlet, go undefeated, and a 99% chance with that 1% chance going towards Florida State. 99% chance you make the national championship game or at least make the college football playoff, and then if you win that game, you're in the Natty. Now it is, if you make that 12-team field, congratulations. Hope you got some good seating because you probably have to win 3, if not 4 games to win a national championship. And people say, well, no, it's going to, the conference realignment thing, JD, Georgia, they're going to have a chance to lose more games. Ohio State, they got Oregon coming to that conference, USC coming to that conference. They still got to play the Michigans and the Penn States of the world. Like over the course of the next couple of years, there's going to be better games during the season. So those teams are, going to have a better chance to lose more games. I don't think you're wrong. I'm not telling you that's incorrect. But again, we go to this expanded playoff format. 10-2, Georgia's getting in. Ohio State at 10-2, they're getting in. Texas at 10-2, they're getting in. So even if they drop a game during the regular season, guess what? If they don't play for the conference championship, or let's say they lose the conference championship for any one of those teams, they have 3 weeks rest. If they win the conference, they have 4 weeks rest to game plan, to get healthy. Those teams getting rest with those rosters and the talent disparity that there already is, that's not helpful for the other teams that you maybe would want to see win a national championship that don't have that same star power, that same recruiting prowess that those schools do. Now, here's the other thing you're going to hear a lot about. This relates to the portal. This relates to NIL. Well, JD, there's going to be more parity on the field because there's going to be more parity on the recruiting trail. And the transfer portal could very well cater to that. I'm not saying it can't. If you land a star quarterback, and that could totally change the complexion of your entire outlook for your season. Fair enough. Totally true. However, on a year in and year out basis, if you zoom out and look at this thing from like a graph perspective, on a line graph, like I don't think it's going to be this linear progression where it's like you just stockpiled all this talent because of NIL and because of the portal, and that took you from being a middle-of-the-pack Big 12 team to being a consistent national title contender. Now, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, I'm naming those schools because I think we all agree those are pretty much the blue bloods. Those schools may still lose a 5-star here or there. Like, yes, they might get outbid when it comes to NIL. They might have a little bit of a difficult time landing every single 5-star they would have landed previously. But here's my point. Georgia in, I believe it was 2018, had the #1 class in America at the high school level on signing day. #1 class. Again, this is all pre-NIL. Over the course of, the last couple of seasons, NIL has become a reality, so that should have affected Georgia, right? Well, from 2021 to 2024, Georgia is averaging a top 3 class. Georgia has had multiple #1 classes since the NIL era began. NIL isn't hurting Georgia. NIL isn't going to hurt Ohio State or Texas or Michigan or any of those schools. Like, I promise you, whether they're doing so right now or whether it's something that's coming in the future, those schools can play ball with deep pockets as well as anybody else in the country. So will they land every single 5-star? Probably not. A 5-star may go to this lower level school or this other school that's not creme de la creme in your conference. But here's the deal, man. Those schools that were getting the 5 stars before, if they don't get all of them, they're still going to get more than the others. And so there might be a little bit more disparity when it comes to where those 5 stars end up at. There might be 6 5-stars landing at this top-tier school instead of 7 from the year before. I'm speaking hypothetically here. That's still the difference maker for me. And the reason why I think this is important to mention here, you can have a generational kind of player change a program, but more often than not, the way that we should look at recruiting together is from a macro level. Are they stacking top 3 classes? Are they stacking #1 classes? Are they stacking this elite talent year after year to build your roster foundationally to be able to be successful in the future? And then, oh, by the way, coaching is still a very real factor in winning football games today. And those schools that have been competitive at a high level for a long time, yes, recruiting is a major factor, but also Kirby Smart is one of the best coaches in college football. Ryan Day, say what you want about Michigan, has won 87% of his games. Brian Kelly won north of 70% of his games, been coaching a lot of football. Like the coaches that are able to win, Steve Sarkisian won a lot of his games, just made the college football playoff last year. The coaches that execute at a high level with their game plans, that's not going anywhere. Like at the end of the day, you still got to line it up. You still got to see me on Saturday afternoon between those white lines and line it up and have that be the way that thing goes. So more parity, is it coming? I don't believe so. In fact, I'd argue there's going to be less parity. Now, will you see more teams in the national championship picture? Of course. It's 12 teams. By nature of the arithmetic of the whole situation, there's going to be more teams in that conversation. But to say that we're going to have more parity in terms of who's going to win a national championship, they're lying to us. They're lying to us. Big CFB, they try and pull back the curtain on us, try and put the wool over our eyes. Dikembe Mutombo, not so fast. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.